Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to this webinar today from Easy Software. My name is George Hadaway. I'm Business Development Manager here at Easy Software, and I'm pleased to be able to present to you today our webinar, which is 5 Steps to Invoicing Bliss. So today, it's only a short webinar, probably no more than 20, 30 minutes long, but we're going to explore how we can utilize invoice automation technologies to improve our accounts payable process and ultimately save our businesses time and money. So welcome. We're Easy Software. For those that don't know us, we are a document and enterprise content management software company. We are the software vendors. We're long established. We've been around since 1990. We have almost 13,000 customers globally in 54 countries around the world, a network of partners that take our products to market and integrate them into other line of business applications. There's quite a lot to what we do. Document and content management encompasses nearly every department in an organization. Today we're going to concentrate on invoice processing and looking at how we can automate that, specifically for the accounts payable department. But we do have a wealth of other solutions for other areas such as contract management, HR, personnel, file management, scanning applications, workflow, archiving, a whole ream of solutions for different business challenges. We're currently living in the age of digitization. We are creating content at a faster rate than ever before. IBM state that 90% of the world's data has been created in the last 2 years, and that equates to over 2.5 quintillion bytes of data being produced today. We're creating more documents than ever before. Businesses are under more pressure than ever before to increase profits and reduce costs. We have to look at technology to help improve our internal processes and save us time and money so we can concentrate on the tasks that create revenue. A lot of businesses can be compared to swans on a lake, on the surface, graceful and calm, under the water, furiously paddling to keep up. A huge amount of organizations still rely on manual paper-based processes, which are expensive, time-consuming, and puts the business at risk of losing important corporate information. A study done by AIM surveyed accounts payable professionals and asked them what their #1 challenges were day to day. The biggest issue was around the number of invoices still coming into the business in paper format, having to perform large amounts of manual data entry and manually sending invoices around the business for approval without the transparency of being able to see where they are and the status of the approval process. The Accounts Payable Association, so this is a professional member body with over 40,000 accounts payable professional members. Easy Software is an accredited member of the Accounts Payable, accredited partner, and they survey their members every year, and they found some really interesting results. 57% of all invoices from the surveyed representatives' responses said that they still came in on pieces of paper. 54% of businesses said invoices were being sent to the wrong place, and 36% said they were concerned with late payments due to process delays. And this leads to process inefficiencies. So 56% of businesses experience cash flow forecasting problems due to accounts payable issues. 63% had received duplicated invoices, of which 33% had actually paid them. Obviously a problem with late payment, going over the 30-day terms or even 60-day terms, and then businesses will ultimately send in duplicate invoices, copy invoices to be paid, and then businesses go and pay them twice. 78% admitted to paying supplier invoices late, and I would argue the other 22% are liars. 58% needed to pay late payment charges to suppliers, and 33% had used chaps to make same-day payments, which ultimately is an additional cost. And this leads to supplier issues. So 90% said they regularly had phone calls from suppliers chasing payments. So this is taking up people's time when they could be getting on with other more profitable actions for the business rather than having to deal with angry suppliers. 69% said they received supplier payment chasing calls every week. 53% said they can't provide answers immediately over the phone and need to call back because they don't have the information to hand. And 23% said they had suppliers who refused to work with them again due to process inefficiency. So This is ultimately the most serious and the most extreme, but 23% of businesses have had this happen to them. And we have a late payment culture in the UK, especially, with the largest organisations seemingly able to bully their suppliers into agreeing their terms. And this can have extreme and terrible consequences, I mean, such as the recent demise of Carillion, which we all know about. Subcontractors and suppliers claiming Carillion had been delaying signing off payments and questioning invoices. They had 120-day payment terms which they forced their suppliers to pay with. And ultimately, now they've gone out of business. There is millions of unpaid invoices leaving suppliers and contractors in the lurch. So what can we do to improve our processes? Well, the theme of today is 5 steps, so I'm going to look at the 5 ways we can use technology to really help us improve our process, our ultimate accounts payable process, and save us time and money. So the first is reducing the need for manual data entry and utilizing OCR and extraction technologies to really speed up the entry of invoices into our finance systems. So OCR technologies these days are really quite accurate. They're very robust. We can extract a lot of the data, the majority of the data, without anyone even having to look at an invoice or make any manual amendments. And we've got these pre-configured extraction rules, so the system is already configured to read invoices, look for the pertinent data on the page, and extract it accurately so we can utilize that data and import it into our finance systems. So here we can see the user experience from what we call Easy Capture Verify. So this is if anyone does need to make any manual changes, and we can see all the data here that's been extracted off the page, and the information on the left is the fields with this traffic light system showing us what's been accurately picked up, and anything that hasn't could be amber or red, where somebody just has to make a manual change before we ultimately send that information into our ERP systems. And once we've extracted the data, we can send our invoices through workflow to automate the authorization process. So by using electronic workflow, we can route invoices for approval around the business. Whereas before, we might send them via email or just send them manually around the business, putting them on people's desks. The problem here is we have no auditability. We can't track where the invoices are. We can't escalate if things have been ignored for too long. So using electronic workflow now, we have the ability to be masters of our own destiny. We can control where the invoices need to go. We can see who they're with, how long they've been there. We can set automatic escalation measures. So if something hasn't been dealt with after a certain period of time, people can be sent reminders, or it can be escalated to another more senior member of the team. We can do things like duplicate checking. So we mentioned earlier on about the number of suppliers who had problem with duplicate invoices. Now the system can recognize based on the supplier and the invoice number if a copy invoice is sent in again from a supplier. The system will recognize it's a duplicate. We can flag it up and take the appropriate action, whether to just delete it and cancel it, or find the original and pay that. So it's all web-based. There's no software that needs to be installed on anyone's PCs. The workflow tool itself, the workflow design tool, is a graphical interface, so we can build the workflow specific to your own business process to replicate it in an electronic manner. And we would also use this. We'd use this typically to authorize non-purchase order invoices that need to go around the business for an approvals process, but also the invoices with purchase orders, perhaps there's a discrepancy. So if everything is fine, everything matches on the invoice, it matches the order, we could send that straight through to the ERP for payment. If it's not, perhaps there's a difference in the price on the invoice that the extraction has picked up, then we can send it here. We can obviously check with the supplier. Perhaps it's a part invoice, or we're doing three-way matching, and we can leave it in the workflow until we have all the pieces of the invoice that we need to ultimately authorize it and pay it. Step 3. Archiving. Ultimately, at the end of any authorization process, we need to store the invoices long term. So obviously HMRC state that we need to store our invoices and keep them for 6 years. So by utilizing our electronic archive, we can keep them stored in a compliant manner for long term. We can set retention policies up, so after those 6 years, then invoices can automatically be removed off the system if so required. We don't have to keep the hard copy invoices anymore either. So once they are stored in the system, we can destroy the hard copy invoices if you so wish, because we always have access to be able to search and retrieve and find the invoices that we need quickly and electronically. We'll keep an audit trail, so we can always see what was done by whom. We can look back through the approvals process. We can see who's made any changes, version control the documents, and obviously ultimately even see who's viewed it. A great tool for auditors as well, so when the auditors come into the business, instead of having to ask you for copy invoices filing through your filing cabinets, they can have their own login to here and they can access and search for any of the information on the invoices to get back the results they need. And you can store any other associated documentation alongside, so it doesn't have to be the invoice itself. Perhaps you've got a string of communication between the supplier in an email. You can store that by dragging and dropping it directly into the system. So now anyone who has access and has the permissions to see these invoices can see all that other supplementary and complementary information as well, instead of this information being siloed in people's inboxes or in file systems. We can have this centralized repository for all the information that we need to make better business decisions. Integration. These solutions are really only useful if we can integrate them into our third-party applications, so our finance systems, our purchase order systems, our ultimate ERP applications. So we want to be able to extract the data, as we said at that first stage. We want to be able to send the documents around for authorization and approval and store them. But ultimately, at the end of that process, we want to take that data that we've extracted and make sure that the finance system can ingest that, so we're not having to duplicate any manual data entry. We also need to be able to look against the records within the ERP system to match against suppliers. So when we're ultimately extracting that information at the first stage, we need to be able to look for any unique supplier information in your finance system so we can make sure that we've got the right supplier. Like I said, we need to be able to publish and post that data into the finance system, let the finance system know that the invoice has been authorized and that invoice payment can be released to the supplier. So here at Easy, we've got open integration interfaces to be able to integrate into any ERP system imaginable, but really it's our network of partners that take our solutions and write these direct integrations into different applications. We've done it thousands of times. We've obviously hundreds of partners that have integrated into thousands of different applications. Here's a small example from one of our partners of integration into Sun Systems. So here ultimately as well, at the end of the process, we can be looking at the transaction within Sun. We have a drill to easy button, and you can call this what you like. It can be drill to image, show image, open invoice. But by clicking that button, that'll go straight to easy, pull back the invoice and present it on the screen in a web browser for the user. Nice, quick and easy, and saves anyone having to go and do any other searching within the system. So step 5 is reporting. Obviously, if we now have all this information and we have the documents electronically and we can send them around the business for authorization, what is really useful now is to be able to report and then really measure our KPIs and how much the system is saving us in time and money. So we can build any number of reports, but with a graphical report designer, we can build custom reports depending on specific requirements that you may have, and then we can export these into multiple formats. So it could be via PDF, it could be in Excel spreadsheets. We could create graphical representations such as pie charts, bar charts, scatter graphs, and render them within the web client itself. And these can be automatically run reports that can be set to run, weekly or monthly, and then email the certain users with the reports. Or they can be run on demand as and when somebody wants to report to see key information in the system. So, what's the value of all the invoices we have out for payment? Perhaps I want to run a report just to look at a specific supplier and see what I've got outstanding. Perhaps I want to run a report on anything that's currently overdue. And then we can create what we call gadgets as well. So within your Easy system on a dashboard, we can see a quick overview of what is the proportion of payments outstanding via supplier. How long is the current approvals process taking me? All this information, so we can really see what benefits we're getting out of the system, and importantly see what actions we need to take, or business decisions we need to take. What's the vital information we need to make these decisions. And here we can see an example of a graphical report represented within Easy, within the web client. So the solution that we've been discussing is Easy Invoice. So as I mentioned from the start, it's a pre-configured solution package designed for invoice processing for accounts payable departments. So ultimately, the way it works is we capture invoices. We can capture the paper invoices by scanning them. We can scan a bulk load of invoices at once. We can also capture invoices coming in, electronic invoices coming in via email, and these can be sent through to the OCR extraction engine. So whether they come in paper or electronically, it doesn't matter. The system will ingest them. We will process the attachments. We will read every piece of information on that document, and using business intelligence, we will translate that data into usable information. So the system is looking for keywords like invoice number, and around that, if it finds a number, it'll assume that that's likely to be the invoice number and place a confidence level against it. It will look for purchase order references. It'll look for any unique supplier information to match to the supplier, like VAT numbers, bank numbers, sort codes. It will look at line items. It'll look at all the amounts on the page. It'll make sure that the totals add up and the net and the VAT equals the gross. So it's doing all this clever stuff to try and best extract the information as possible. Now, if it can't, and it can't read anything, or it can't find the right information, then it will send to a user where they can make those small manual amendments that need to be made. That's what we call the verification. Then after that, we send to the workflow engine for approval. The system will decide, right, is this an invoice with a purchase order or without? If it's with a purchase order, then perhaps we can post it straight to the ERP if everything matches without anyone even having to manually verify anything. If it's not, and perhaps it needs to go down the approval process, then we can send it around the approvals workflow, where one or a number of people might need to approve it before it can be paid. Ultimately, at the end of this workflow process, then we're going to post that data into the finance system, and tell the system that it's been approved and it can be paid. And then we're going to store the document in the document management repository in the archive for long-term compliant storage and retrieval. And ultimately, then we can build reports based on any of this information, depending on what that vital information is that we want to see. So thank you. It was only a very, very brief webinar today, just to give you a very brief introduction as to what Easy Invoice does, some of the key benefits, and really where it can help us. If you'd like to see more, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us or your Easy partner, where we can arrange a more detailed demonstration. My contact details are there on the screen. We do have some more information on the website. And from today, after this session, everyone who attended will be able to receive an ebook as well on invoice management. So yeah, thank you again for your time. I hope it was useful, and please don't hesitate to contact us if we can help with anything else. Thank you.